Greetings! It's I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, your Lord Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and avast, ye scurvy dogs, it's time to talk about the Shackles! Yes, I'm going to be talking about a region in the Pathfinder world of Golarion today once more. So if you're joining me over on Twitch, where I'm swabbing the deck and talking to you all about these things, of course, follow would be nice. If you're joining me over on YouTube, a couple days later after this was recorded, avast, you scurvy dogs, welcome to... I'm going to try to do the pirate voice as much as I can. I'm probably going to mess it up a lot. But, you know, liking the video, subscribing there, ringing the bell, all that great things. Have you had adventures in the Shackles? I, for one, did. If you want to check out my entire series, learn a lot about the Shackles, even different than what I'm talking about now, and really dive into it, I have Buccaneers of the Shackled Sea. It's an entire live play of the Skulls and Shackles adventure path adapted by myself that uses the Shackles. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, you know, I will caveat a lot of things as we go here too. But, you know, I'm going to shout out my own thing, and that, you know, that we did. It has gone to completion. It's a lot of episodes, though. It was a long play. It's an adventure path. But nonetheless, you're here to learn about the Shackles. And I can say to you, like I always say to everybody when they visit here, hey, there's some books you might want to check out if you want to do further reading after I'm done. I like to suggest this because I encourage people to dive deeper into lore than you and I talk about. I do. I think it's a great idea for all of us to get out there and learn a few things and dive deeper. Of course, where would I go to dive deeper? Well, you can start with the Inner Sea World Guide. It's where we kind of have our introduction to the Shackles. And of course, The Isles of the Shackles is a great book. The Faction Guide talks about the pirates of the Shackles. And of course, hey, you know, it doesn't really add us any new information, but I mean, like, if you wanted to look through the Skulls and Shackles adventure path, starting from the Player's Guide all the way through all 6 adventures, you're going to get information about the Shackles. From 2nd edition, the Lost Omens World Guide will give you some stuff about it. So let's dive into the Shackles. Because what are the Shackles? Well, they're an extended archipelago on the coast of Western Garund. They are directly south of the Eye of Abednego, the never-ending hurricane that's plagued that region for some time. And because of its location and having the Eye of Abednego just north of there, you know what it became? A haven for pirates, in particular the Shackles pirates. Of course, there was the ancient Cyclopsian civilization of Golarion that had part of its civilization built in this region. So some of those ancient ruins are also found here, other than on the mainland nearby and some of the other nearby regions. There you go. That's the basics of the Shackles. Let's talk about the... So it is a sea-based area. The capital's Port Peril. Currently, Tessa Fairwind rules it. And just to keep in mind, when we talk pirates, overall the Shackles are a chaotic neutral region. Meaning that, you know, you get your very just, more Robin Hood-y type pirates. And of course, then you also get your very evil, terrible scoundrels. Then the free captains, ruled over by a council of pirate lords, rules over them. There we got some basics done. Alright, let's talk about early history of the Shackles. So, we go back to the Age of Serpents. Very long time ago. I mean, we're way before the Earthfall, you know, the big changes and all that kind of stuff like that. So we're way ahead of this. This is when the Serpent Men ruled the world. And the area of the Shackles was part of Golarion, the Cyclops Kingdom. They were an ancient competitor during that time period with the Serpent Folk. I will probably get into that entire stuff in a different time. That's not today. But you can find a lot of those ruins, of course, scattered throughout the region, and many depictions and carvings depict cannibalism and blood sacrifice. It turns out the fall of the kingdom was not a cataclysmic earthfall that came down. It was, they descended into madness, cannibalism, and blood sacrifice. You know, the things that make your civilization collapse. When you're killing all of each other and eating them, it doesn't really bode well to having civilization. Anyway, so few scholars know that it was several millennium after the collapse of Golgon that two powerful sorcerers known as Rugs Mauda and the Grey Wurlis came to here and fought one another for control of the archipelago. They both uncovered powerful sorceries that were, dun 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 dun, directly linked to the doom of Golgon. And you know what they decided to do? Ancient sorceries that led to the destruction of a powerful Cyclopsian civilization. Let's use those! Great idea. In the end, though, both of them did not understand the powers that they were using. So, it was disastrous. Great Wurlis lost, and Rogs Maud was heavily injured and forced to retreat to her dungeon on Motaku Island for centuries. So, yeah, this was a thing that happened long after this. No one really has inhabited this region after that. So then the first people to actually explore this area came from Cheliax, and it was in 4111 AR. So think about that. This region has been pretty much uninhabited by anyone for 10,000 years or so. Like the Age of Serpents. Let me see when it would be in the Absalom reckoning system. I don't know the exact... but the Age of Legends came after that. And the Age of Legends was ended in negative 5293. So, Age of Legends, that was the time of Aslan and Tassalon. So this is a time period where we don't know when it exactly ended. And so yes, well over 10,000 years and no one's lived here. No, humanoids have theoretically lived here. No one of, quotation, civilization. Now they discovered the ruins here, the Golgon ruins, and the grisly illustration, and declared them cursed. And so instead of settling the Shackles, they moved on from this cursed land to farther south along Grund and settled Sargava. I'm going to talk about Sargava in a future video at some point in time, but yes. So, trade began between Sargava and Cheliax. And when there is trade, there are those that wish to prey upon it. And guess what? These ancient harbors and ruins and places were a great place for people to hide. This place that, oh, hey, it's cursed. Let's not live here. Other people were like, I don't fucking care. I'm going to move in there. And then the pirates, the Shackles, were born to prey upon that trade. This place was a great place to hide and to strike out on this trade routes. Havens grew into proper communities. Retired sea captains founded settlements like Blood Cove and the Mwangi Expanse and other regions, Port Peril and stuff like that. So, yeah. The settlement to the south and traveling through this very dangerous area that, has a lot of places to hide led to piracy. Now we enter the Age of Lost Omens, which is, nearly 2,000 years ago, not quite. This is when the Eye of Abadago appears, 4606, following the death of the god Eredin. And it had a lot of effects in this region. Trade, for one thing. So, the sea trade along Western Grund shrunk. Many captains did not want to risk navigating the devastating permanent hurricane. So, this did cause shipping to sink away, and a lot of Shackles pirates to leave during this time period. So many retired or left to Northern Nuclear area. And the change here was eventually challenged when the free captains, who were the leaders of the Shackles pirates, basically banded together in 4674. So, this is 70 years after there. Okay, it's 1,000 years ago that this kind of occurred. 100. No, nearly 200. Oh my god, I'm giving them... Nearly 200 years ago this occurred. No. Yeah, a little over 200 years ago. Because 48 23. 48, 24 now. So, we're 7 years on. They forged one pirate fleet under the leadership of an elected Hurricane King and their pirate council. And this group started preying on shipping in the north of the Eye as far as the Arch of Eredin. And they used their knowledge of navigating the waters of the Eye to escape their enemies. Now, granted, also during this time, in 4609, some pirates looked for alternate source of income, and merchants traveling to and from Sargatha to the south would pay handsomely for having their ships guided around the storm. So there were also, like, pirates that turned to guides, getting a lot of money for guiding around the storm. It was, you know, more lucrative to keep a business going rather than to possibly attack them and lose people and all that kind of stuff. So you had a transition of these just ragtag pirates to kind of multiple groups. Those that retired and just lived on the lands of the Shackles then, former pirates. Those that were more guides and stuff. And of course, those that became this fleet that now had a sort of united thing going on. It's only sort of united, you know. The free captains are kind of united. We'll talk about that. Second big effect, because we have a second big effect. Because guess what? With Cheliax having a lot less control over Sargatha, well, that's the result. Which was further diminished by outbreaks of hostility between the various noble houses that led to the Chelish Civil War. Baron Graelis, the governor of Sargatha, threw his support behind House Davian during the conflict. When it became clear they would lose, he switched to House Thrune, and he switched his allegiance to the only other maritime power in the region than the free captains of the Shackles. No, when it became clear they would lose to House Thrune, they switched to the Shackles. So in 4637, he began paying the pirates large amounts of money to protect Sargatha from backlash from the north. This attack did come in 4643, when the Chelish Navy arrived to deal with the renegade province, but were destroyed by a fleet of pirates in Desperation Bay. Free Captain Morlin Hagtree falsely reported additional Chelish ships anchored in reserve off of Rahadumi port of Azur. Basically, that point in time, because he said that, Governor Graelis began paying the free captains a continuous fee to picket the fleet. And basically, this evolved into the protection contract that the Sargatha had with the pirates for a long time. About a century. Okay, so it's 4724. I'm sorry. So for about a little less than a century. The Chelish Navy Chelish Navy attempted an invasion a second time in 4660. The free captains drove their ships to the Eye of Abednego. Also during this time, it became clear that some of the free captains were not abiding by the protection contract. Baron Ultimus of Sargatha, who had succeeded Graelius, renegotiated with the Hurricane King in 4667. And the king agreed to half the previous amount. Basically, originally the contract was no bothering Sargatha ships, and when a bunch of people went off, and did still bother them, the Shackles got half their money. So the Shackles have been attacked twice on their own, once by Cheliax, one by Rahadum. In both cases, the Eyes destroyed most of the fleet. There was a rumor that, cough cough, was true. One of the free captains offered to guide the Chelish fleets to the Shackles in return for part of past offenses. Oh no, that's a different one. I'm sorry. It was also known that the Rahadum Navy was willing to pay good money for accurate charts and ideally a pilot to assist them in attack on the Shackles. So the deal with Sargatha ended in 4717, when the colonial government was finally overthrown and a new nation of Vigerian refused to continue paying. And the thing is, this was long enough and enough money that the free captains just fully established themselves and consolidated their power. Yes, there were a lot of captains that were free captains that still did their own shit, but, they tried to get away with it, basically. And they would have gotten in trouble if they get away with it. It's a little chaotic there. But this is the chaos that's in this region that the Eye of Abednego has caused. It created a pirate nation, and it created another nation to the south. We'll talk more about Sargatha / Vigerian in its own thing, but just know it is also tightly tied with the Shackles in this case. let's talk about the government here. And we meet this nice lady here, the current Hurricane Queen, Tessa Fairwind. Isn't she nice? She's very nice. Technically, actually, she's a relatively good Hurricane Queen. And by that, I mean, like, you know, she's at least neutral. So, yes, the de facto leaders of the Shackles. And now the thing is, the Shackles are each their own individual islands. So, most often, if you're on an island, who owns it? A free captain. It's not necessarily the case, but oftentimes there might be free captains employed by whoever kind of actually controls the island. So the free captains are closely tied to the entire Shackles society. Even if there's not one directly at the helm of a settlement, they're still going to be connected to it. So that makes them the de facto leaders of the entire Shackles. Most free captains at least have a ship or two, but the most powerful ones have, of course, the region's ports or islands, or sit on the Pirate Council, which oversees everything. Of course, at the forefront of this is the Hurricane King or Queen, who is chosen among members of the Council. Tessa Fairwind is the current leader of this. Basically, the previous one, which was Hurricane King Karadec Bonefist, was ousted in 4712, and yeah, so still, nonetheless, even with this group in charge of the Shackle and generally handing down orders or rules to the Shackle, sort of, it's quite chaotic. And when it comes down to it, every port you visit will have its own laws and customs enforced by the Pirate Lord in charge. Is that Pirate Lord a member of the Pirate Council, or is it just a free captain who happens to own this area then? And of course, then the largest port is the predominant Port Peril, which is strategic and positioned on the mainland. It's safeguarded by formidable actual cannons in Fort Hazard and overlooks Jeopardy Bay. And there's also an entire thing that if you want to become a Pirate Council member, there is a possibility if you join the Free Captain's Regatta and you join that race, you too can be, if you're a Free Captain, join the Pirate Council. Let's talk about the Free Captains. Just a little on their own, as their own thing, because they are a loose group of organized pirate fleets. They're pirate captains. They are technically beholden to the Hurricane Queen / King and the Pirate Council. Basically, as long as you have a ship, you can declare yourself a free captain, technically. Whether you're recognized beyond that is kind of like something rather. Sometimes you might want to get recognized by another free captain. It helps to like get some legitimacy and like, you know, earn a little bit of reputation, because reputation is very important for a free captain. Now there are those that control ports of the Shackles or have other free captains serving under them, and of course there are those that are members of the Pirate Council. So free captain has little affection for one another, and little trust, but they do respect and support each other as a group when called upon by the Pirate Council or the Hurricane King or Queen. The rest of the time, you're basically possibly on the brink of conflict with each other, and the slightest provocation could ignite violence between them. Hostility extends to outsiders, who receive even less hospitality to those that come in there. So yes, and of course you can always join that regatta to become a council member. So who lives in the Shackles? Let's talk about that here for a second. Because the population consists mostly of runaway criminals, escaped slaves, or buyers and sellers of illicit goods. Majority are human, but there are some those that have elf and there are some Uvarians, half-elves, and some Dromar, half-orcs, in good numbers there. Some of the wider regions are home to goblin tribes, and of course the degenerate Kuru people, who are cannibal humanoids. who live in the Shackles. You'd have to look up the Kuru yourself. We'll maybe talk about them in the future. There's also is a Tengu population here, with many settlements having a Tengu quarter. It is actually believed that Tengu are good luck to have aboard a pirate ship, as they soak up bad luck. The lizard folk and their Terwo lords in the Sodden lands to the north occasionally raid in the Shackles. And the sea in the Shackles is home to Lacolus, Sanguine, water nagas, and there are also some dragon turtles in the region. All right, here's a map of it. It's I could make let's make this map a little bigger here. There you go. You can probably find a bit more detailed map online, but there's a pretty good map of showing you what's in the Shackles. I am going to not talk about everything in the Shackles, but I'm going to kind of list some things here too. So as you can see, the big land on the side is the mainland. It's the western edge of the Mwangi Expanse. And then it's all these items and islands in the Arcadian Ocean. There are 6 locations which are the most civilized, and I'm going to talk about each of these in turn. These are the 6 I'm going to go into detail about. There's 6 main, the mainland, and 5 main islands. There are some large ports here. They're heavily fortified, defend against threats from wild interiors, foreign natives, sea monsters, and other groups of pirates rarely. There are also settlements just outside its borders, like the town of Greenblood in the Sodden lands. That town grew up as a ferocious pit fight against the Greenblood on Black Rock. It was started by the pit fighters. So, I'm not going to talk about settlements just yet, but let's talk about these regions. First, we have the mainland region. It's just juts out of western Garud into the Fever Sea. It's directly east of the archipelago. It's got the Terwa uplands dominating it. The coastal regions are generally not mountainous. It is the location of Port Peril. I'm going to talk about Port Peril, which is on its northern coast. Its shores are rocky, with rough sea, few safe harbors, so it's not a great place for shipping. And its southern coast is home to numerous snakes in the area known as the Slithering Coast. There are 4 ports here, but Port Peril is the largest. There's the inland trading post of Nerima and the towns of Covalus, Giblet, Oyster Cay, and Parley Point. Now we move to Bag Island, one of the other major islands in the Shackles. It's west of Dahaka's Teeth and north of Matoku Island. The ruler of it is Jolis Raffles, who offers free slaves from slave ships of Cheliax a chance to settle on this island. It is committed to crushing the slave trade and is dire conflict with the much-hated Bendu, Hanji, and Rapore Isles to Bag Island's north, which is Rakshasa-led, and they're a major trade center in this area. And you've got a lot of halflings on this island that celebrate the capture of every Rapore slave ship. There's not a week that goes by without a Bag vessel encountered a ship flying the red blood flag of Rapore and fighting against it. And these crews fight to the death, and captured sailors are crucified on the southern shore of Rapore's largest island. It's the coast has been named Halfling Coast by Hanji himself. So, it's got grassy plains, rolling hills, sandy shores, but the north of the island is craggy, dotted with thick patches of rainforest. The Bura River feeds many of its hot marshy areas, and is home to venomous snakes, oversized insects, and giant amphibians. Also, manticores or even black dragon are in the marshes. That's Bag Islands. Now we go to Devil's Arches, with, of course, its big place there, Hell Harbor. It's one of the most major islands, of course, there, close to the mainland, south of Weir's Rock. Hell Harbor's here, led by Pirate Lord Aronnax Endymion. It was one of the first major islands of the Shackles discovered by Cheliax explorers. A lot of Golgon ruins dot the entire island, enormous covering edifices, eroded towers, limestone platforms, amphitheaters, ziggurats, all with carvings and art depicting the depravity that was there and the decline of the civilization. The singular constant structure that stands at the center of each of the ruins is a giant gray stone arch without any carving or decoration. They refer to these things as the Devil's Arches, hence the name that it goes here. And there are plenty of archaeologists and scholars that believe these were once diabolic gateways to summon denizens of Hells or another evil demiplane. And again, Hell's Harbor is the big one here. We're not going to talk about settlements right now. We're just talking about these major locations. Now we go to Motaku Isle, one of the largest isles of the Shackles. It's west of the mainland, south of Bag Island. Its settlement is Quent, who is still ruled, even though she's the Hurricane Queen and technically also rules Port Peril, by Tessa Fairwind. So she has not just one, but both the biggest cities under her control. It's geographically diverse. There are 3 notable settlements. They're beyond Quent, Bogsbridge, White Lily, and Rapier Bay. And they're located in the northern western coasts. Beyond the sandy beaches of the settlement, the untamed and deadly Chinog rainforest, also known as the Motak jungle, dominates the north part of the isle, while the Karsule swamplands cover the south and east coasts. Pago Peaks, a squat range of granite mountains having 3 active volcanoes, bisect the island. And finally, rugged hills just below the mountains called the Takar Hills are hunting grounds for dangerous carnivores. Shark Isle is the westernmost isle of the Shackles, north of Besmara's throne and east of Raptor Isle. Is one of the westernmost ones. Second largest island. It has many hideouts suitable as deep water ports and many sources of fresh water and varied game within a short distance of beaches, which have made it an attractive locale. It was an early favorite for pirates that came here and settled the region, but it was short-lived as Sahuagin tribes were attracted to these wealthy ports. They inhabit the underwater caves near Moak Harbor and have expanded in the past 200 years in all the region that's now the Saiguan coast. The towns of Olo and Raketooth have survived, and eventually the 2 small settlements, Blackblood Cay and Violock, have been recently built, but have raids from the Sharktooth humanoids. Sharktooth has kind of evolved into the slums of the Shackles that hopes the most depraved and desperate. Its interior has a lot of dangerous wildlife. The Lake of Scales hosts herds of ankylosaurs, iguanodons, and stegosaurs, and an inlet in the center of the isle is littered with ivory-smothered Golgon ruins. The wide and deep Greenscale River, fed by the Lake of Scales, and small sloops navigate the river to the lake to the sea. Predators hunt the banks of the fast-flowing River of Knives, and a froghemoth is said to live in the swampy western hills framing the shore of Lake Vane. So yeah, a lot of dangerous things there. And Olo is controlled by the pirate lord Avamar Shornash. And Sanguine Mount Pirak raids on Olo. Finally, the last location to talk about is Tempest Cay, the northernmost of the major isles of Shackles. It's north of Widowmaker Isle and just east of the terrible Eye of Abadago. Its major settlement is the storm-lashed port of Drenchport, ruled by the pirate lord known as the Master of Gales. Smaller communities and fishing include the fishing town of Downpour and the settlements of Drowning Rock, dominated by a massive stinking stone monolith, and the town of Maiden's Pool, which once vied with Drenchport for domination of the region until it was attacked by swarms of Lacoviths. And there's your major islands. There are a lot of other major islands. I can list them. I don't know if I want to list all the islands here, but there's a lot of islands in the Shackles, and each of the islands in the Shackles has their own information about them. I'm just going to pick one of them because it has quite a name. We mentioned Raptor Isle. Let's talk about Raptor Isle for just a second. It's a westernmost island. It's west of Shark Island and east of the Cannibal Islands. Its top predator is packs of Deinonychuses. Pirates have a habit of stranding troublemakers as well as malcontents and traders on the island. It is rumored that some have managed to survive the Danacide and banded together for protection. But yeah, we have information on this isle. And there is a place there, a refugee called Fort Holiday, in the location that you can learn about. So each of these islands has information on them. You know, some of them more than others, but it gives you an idea of what these islands are, you know, a little bit about who lives there, civilized places there. And there's plenty of geographical features which can be mentioned. And honestly, I'm just going to talk about 2 cities today a little bit to finish up. Port Peril and Quent, the 2 biggest cities. I could talk about Hell Harbor. I could talk about Olo. I could talk about Queen Bess. I could talk about plenty of these other places. Drenchport, Moak Harbor, Beachcomber. There are a lot of towns that we do know little bits about, enough about, that we can talk about them. But these are the two major cities I really should mention. Port Peril. It's the largest one. It's the capital de facto. It is on the mainland. Fort Hazard protects it. It's a metropolis with over 43,000 individuals living there. Of course, led over by the Pirate Council and the Hurricane Queen. The districts of the city are Beggar's Briar, Crescent Harbor, High Eastwind and Low Eastwind, the Knotworks, which are part of the Eastwinds, Liquorhold, Merchant Marina, and Scrimshaw. Those are all the city districts, and you can look into them more. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into depths about either of these cities because it's good to learn about them. As I would say, like a lot of the books I talked about, the Shackles, the Skulls and Shackles book will go into heavy depths about them if you want to read out more about. And of course, then Quent, the second largest city there. It's sheltered by storms by large barrier islands with its picturesque bay. It is one of the finest deepwater ports in the region. It's one of also among the liveliest and most welcoming ports. Tessa Fairwind, being basically the charismatic leader that she was, to get her position as Hurricane Queen, you know, that's why like Port Peril's probably improved under her than under Karavek Bonefist. There's a lot of dockside taverns. Tessa, you know, isn't the person who's in and like rub shoulders with fellow pirates in taverns when she's ashore. So that's the thing. Tessa's the kind of person who will hobnob with the common folk kind of thing, you know, like that. She was a powerful pirate lord, or member of the Pirate Council, one of the most major forces, powerful pirate lord, you know, ruled over Quent and became Hurricane Queen. So, you know, she tends to be very fair and interesting person there. And of course, if you really want to get some information, you can go to Calstray's House of Stolen Kisses in Quent, where the sacred prostitutes of Calstray ply their trade, both being prostitutes and information gatherers. They are the Shackles' best known information brokerage. Because, yes. We're not talking about Calstray today and her sacred prostitutes, but she has them. Anyway, let's move on and finish up today. I think that's it. Hey, the Shackles. I like the Shackles. The Shackles is an interesting place. It was a fun place to run through in Skulls and Shackles when I did my version of it, Buccaneers. And, you know, it's a place that is so rugged, rough, and chaotic that certainly there are so many stories to tell. You do not need to be pirates. Certainly you can do something like the Skulls and Shackles adventure path where you become pirates, but adventurers, archaeologists, explorers, discovering ancient ruins, things like that, traders, like merchants, kind of slash traders, people on the run. There's so many stories that could be told related to the Shackles. And the thing is, every island on the Shackles is uniquely different. I could be here for hours talking about all the different islands. It would be so long and so much, and that's kind of why I just went over a little bit of it. There's so many... so many places here that have information about it. Even like a couple of paragraphs define so much about these locations. The Shackles is a unique, vibrant, rich place with all kinds of history and information about it. And yes, it's pretty new history. People have only been living here for, what, 100 years? Yeah. Actually, no, 600 years. Kind of. At most. Since Cheliax founded Sergava. For only about 100 years has there been this true council of pirates that have ruled over the place. Not that long. You know? It's a newer thing. These free captains have united together and formed the strength of this region. But It's a chaotic place that has had, you know, all kinds of interesting things going on there. And certainly there's a lot of changes going on here. Think about Tessa Fairwind. He's not the iron-fisted Karavik Bonefist who ruled with fear, terror, and strength. Tessa's charismatic, reasonable. You know, certainly speaking, she is someone much more beholden to a new way of thinking, a new Shackles. Her in charge of it has certainly put the Shackles into a different direction over the last decade. It's a slow direction, but surely we can see that it's a much more neutral direction. Especially now that the Sergava deal is ended. The free captains have to unite together even more. There's a lot of stuff going on. Everything that happened with Cheliax, everything that's happened in the Inner Sea region, a lot of the changes in the world. Even here in this place where probably directly none of that matters. Indirectly, plenty of it can be felt. And in certainly speaking, there's always competitions and things going on between the various isles and places of the Shackles. Everyone's unique. Everyone has a story to tell. And everyone's an interesting place to visit. And certainly, everyone's that core little aspect of an adventure to have. That's the Shackles. Adventure in a nutshell. Anyway, that'll be it for today. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Shackles. I liked talking about them. It was fun to finally sit down and after my 2 years of running a game in this place, talk about it. I was waiting till we were done the adventure path to kind of give a full review of it and talk about it because, hey, even in our story, Tessa eventually ended up in charge of it. There was a person in between there, but Tessa replaced that person. One of the characters was Hurricane Queen for a while before Tessa took over. So there was a story there, and it was different. But, don't want to reveal too much. If you want to see more of stuff I do, tabletop-related stuff, every Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. Tuesdays, Thursdays, early to mid-afternoon, usually between 1 and 2. And then Saturdays, as close to 11 as I can. Thursdays are the Pathfinder Day. You will hear all this Pathfinder Golarion lore. On Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, EST, Crimson Queen. That's my live play of Pathfinder First Edition. It's my replacement for Buccaneers of Shackled Sea. Really fun, great. We've, learned a lot of lessons during Buccaneers that I'm taking to account during Crimson Queen. I would hope you enjoy. Come sit down. Have a fun game, fun players, and all that kind of stuff. Saturdays at 6 is Discussing Tabletop. Tabletop discussion show where me and my friends, we talk about the news of the week and deeper discussions into the tabletop world. I have Discord and Twitter down below. If you want to see other stuff, all the tabletop stuff goes up on YouTube. So if you're joining me there, hey, you can check it out usually a couple days after. I stream it live on Twitch, which you can always join me on that schedule. And also I do some gaming streams, chatting streams on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. If you always want to join me, check those out. Those don't go up on YouTube. So I will also be willing to have tabletop discussions on those days if anyone wants to join and have a chat with me. I always like talking tabletop. Anyway, until the next time we talk about tabletop, more regions of Golarion, different things like that, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.